Chapter 3 Hopes Dashed. Traveling through Los Angeles was very different than traveling through New York City. Everything seemed so much further apart, and there weren't nearly as many tall buildings, even though there seemed to be many more streets. However, Spike obviously knew his way around because as soon as we ran into a line of heavy traffic on the freeway, he took an exit and began to wind the limousine through the city streets. Dorothy said it wasn't the nicest area of Los Angeles, but even the poorer areas looked bright and dazzling to me. Sidewalks glittered, and the giant billboards advertised new movies. However, I did notice there weren't as many people walking on the sidewalks as in New York. Here, everyone seemed to be in cars. Minutes later, Dorothy eagerly pointed out a sign that read City of Beverly Hills. Home, she declared with a deep, grateful sigh. The way she spoke about it made it seem as if Beverly Hills were an island which she felt safe and secure from the rest of the world. Spike drove up to the front of the Vine, a restaurant with a hunter green railing smothered in vines and a bright pink and red bougainvillea. There was an outdoor patio that looked nearly filled with patrons. Waiters and busboys in starched white shirts and black pants with black suspenders scurried about gracefully, moving like invisible people, past the obviously well-to-do clientele, all of whom were thick in conversation. The restaurant's valet hurried up to help us out once Spike came around to open the door. "Merci," Dorothy said with a wave of her glove. When Spike got in the car, I wondered where he would go to eat, but I didn't have time to ask. Dorothy swept us down the cobblestone path to the gate of the patio, where a very attractive young woman waited as a hostess at the station. "Mrs. Livingston," she said, flashing a smile made for toothpaste commercials. "How are you?" "Starving, Lena. Meet my sister's young friend Melanie. She's just in town from New York. This is her first time in Los Angeles, and I thought I'd introduce her to the Vine." "So get us a good table," Dorothy insisted. Lena turned and studied the patio. "I have number 12 open," she declared, as if it was an amazing accomplishment. Why was it so important where we sat, I wondered. All of the chairs looked the same, and the patio and its fountain and bright flowers looked beautiful no matter where you were sitting. "Bellissimo," Dorothy approved. Lena started down the cobblestone patio, and we followed until she stopped at a table nearly perfectly centered. Dorothy beamed with satisfaction after we sat. Lena handed us menus encased in leather folders in the same hunter green shade as the railings. "We have an angel hair pasta, special with red peppers and portobello mushrooms today, Miss Livingston." "Oh, that's good, merci." As soon as Lena left us, Dorothy leaned toward me. "This is usually a table reserved for movie stars," she said. "It's where everyone can see you." Oh, why did she want everyone to see us, I wondered. It made me feel more self-conscious about my hair, my clothes, everything I did. I looked at the menu. The prices were shocking. Everything was a la carte, and salads were almost as expensive as the entrees. Simple things were described so elaborately, I wasn't sure I recognized them. What was a heart of celery? "Don't you think second about the prices," Dorothy said, anticipating my reaction. "My husband, Philip, writes off everything I spend one way or another." She laughed. "He says since I do so much to help the American economy, the least the government can do is subsidize me." "What does your husband do?" I asked. I don't remember Holly telling me. "He's an accountant and a financial manager with some very impressive clients," she replied, lifting her eyebrows. Then her face filled with excitement, like a starstruck little girl. "Oh, I think that's somebody sitting in the corner over there," she said, nodding right. I turned. "Somebody? A television star, right?" "I don't know," I said. "I'm sure it is." "Well, let's see," she said, turning back to the menu. "Why don't we have the angel hair special? after the goat cheese salad, okay? Do you like iced tea? They make it with a touch of mint. Yes, ma'am. Oh, please don't call me ma'am, Melanie. She gazed around nervously to see if anyone nearby heard. That makes me sound so old. Call me Dorothy. Yes, Dorothy, I said, and she smiled and nodded with approval, holding the brim of her hat as she did so. The waiter came. He spoke with a thick Spanish accent. I had trouble understanding what he said, but Dorothy had no problem. She gave him our order and added por favor, the Spanish for please. I already noticed how she liked to throw French, Italian, and Spanish expressions into her conversation, flicking her wrist as she did so. I don't imagine you ate very well on the plane, did you, you poor thing? I was too nervous, I admitted. That's okay, I'm always too nervous to eat when I travel. Philip's never too nervous to lose his appetite over anything. Now let's get right down to your problem, she said, pausing only when a busboy brought us our iced tea. As I understand it, you want to find out if a woman is your mother, a woman who came out here to be a movie star. You were told she was killed in a car fire, and they shipped her body back to Providencetown? Yes. It sounds very, very complicated. I discussed it with Philip, and he agrees that we should simply hire a private detective. After all, why should a young girl go investigating such a thing? Oh no, I moaned. This is something I have to do myself. Thank you, but I do, I insisted. Really? She stared at me a moment, then rolled her eyes. Well, I suppose you can start yourself. I'll have Spike take you around. He's very good when it comes to weird things, as you saw, but you must listen to him, she admonished. I wouldn't want anything to happen to you while you're my guest, she said. Then she thought about what she had said and added, I wouldn't want anything to happen to you under any circumstances. Thank you, Dorothy. I do appreciate your concern for me and what you're doing, I said. Now, let's not think about it. I'll become deaf, she threatened again. I started to laugh. So, she continued without catching her breath, tell me more about my dear little sister. Does that cripple man still live with her in the rear in that hole-in-the-wall shop? I don't think of Billy as being crippled, I began, and described my trip to New York and what Billy and I had done together in the short time. She listened, a small smile on her face. I had the feeling she was studying me rather than paying attention to the things I said. It's so wonderful to be young and impressionable, she declared with a sigh. It's almost a shame to introduce you to the hard realities of the world. Holly always refused to face them, but you saw how my sister lives, like some hippie, some gypsy. She's so pretty and bright when she wants to be. I could find her an adequate husband in a heartbeat, if she would let me. Bon qui sera, Sarah. I was about to protest and explain that I thought Holly was happy and that she lived a good life, but our salads arrived. They looked delicious. However, the portions made me smile and shake my head. A half a dozen forkfuls would clean the plate. I felt guilty having her pay for it. It seems like a lot of money for this small amount of food, Dorothy. Nonsense, it's more than enough. You've got to watch your diet, especially here, my dear. Just look around at these women. Look, she ordered, and I realized that she wanted me to do it now. I looked around the restaurant as subtly as I could. There were many attractive women, all with beautiful hairdos and expensive-looking clothes. It was obviously a place for the rich and beautiful. Everyone watches her figure. Competition, 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 my dear. Every woman is competing with every other woman here. For what, I asked. She laughed. For what? For the eyes of a man, what else? Many of these women want to be in pictures or with powerful men. But don't worry, I'll explain it all to you later. Just from the little bit you've told me about your background, I know you have so much to learn. And I do enjoy helping a young woman become sophisticated, she declared. Now don't eat too quickly. You don't want to seem like a naive girl from the Midwest. Besides, this is the best table. We should enjoy our moment in the spotlight. See? People are wondering who we are already, she said, nodding at the people at the other tables. She was right. They were looking our way. Dorothy adjusted her hat and smiled at someone. You can be friendly, she said, still nodding and smiling at people. But don't speak to anyone first. Let them come to you. Always wait for them and never tell anyone too much, she warned. The more mysterious you are, the more your stock goes up. That's the way Philip would put it. She nodded at someone to our right. Don't worry, you'll learn. After a while, she assured me. I'm really not here for any of that, Dorothy, I said softly. I just want to see about my mother. Of course, but like everyone else who comes here, you'll soon fall in love. Fall in love? With what? With whom? I asked. Why, with yourself, dear. Who else? She said and laughed. I'm sure, she added when I started to stare at her. That's exactly what happened to your mother. After what proved to be one of the longest lunches of my life, our meal followed by cups of cappuccino and fruit tarts that cost as much as the meal itself, we finally left. Spike was right there in the limousine, waiting. He held the doors open for us, and I did feel like someone very special because of the way the pedestrians passed to look at us, and the way the hostess and the other staff fawned over Dorothy. She was like a sponge soaking up their artificial smiles, growing fatter on that than the miserly portions we had been served. I did get a glimpse of the bill, and Holly wasn't far off when she told me what it would cost. Dorothy had paid over $75 for lunch. We rode past the expensive-looking restaurants up Santa Monica Boulevard to what Dorothy announced was the world-famous Rodeo Drive. I'll take you there tomorrow, my dear, to find you something adequate to wear. Spike made a right turn and drove us past beautiful large homes, one more elaborate and the other with their Grecian columns and tall hedges. As we drove, Dorothy rattled off the names of movie stars, singers, and dancers I've seen in films. She also knew the names of the film directors and producers who lived in various houses because her husband Philip had some of them for clients. Finally, we slowed to a 2-story English two-door, bigger than any house I'd ever seen. It had steeply pitched roof, side gabbled, with tall, narrow windows and multi-pane glazing. There was a massive chimney on the left, crowned by 3 decorative chimney pots. The walls were brick, contrasted with wooden claddings, the sort of house I'd seen only in the covers of romance novels. Home sweet home, Dorothy declared as Spike turned into the pink tile driveway lined with Tiffany glass lamps. The lawn looked like an emerald carpet with every blade cut perfectly. There was an enormous weeping willow on the left, its tearful branches nearly reaching the ground, and on the right was a thick oak that looked like a proud and majestic as it towered over the flowers, rock garden, and yellow and white and pink bougainvillea that clung to the tall wooden border fence beneath it. Your house is so big, I exclaimed. I didn't think houses could be so big in a city. It's a mansion. I suppose it is a mansion. We do have 20 rooms, she said, if you count the help's quarters, Philip's office, Philip's gymnasium. Gymnasium? 20 rooms? Dorothy laughed. Philip complains that it's never big enough, especially when I lost my women's club's meetings. Alongside the house was a 3-car garage, but because the entrance was on the side, it made the house appear even longer. I saw windows above the garage, too. Spike parked in front of the arched doorway and quickly came around to open Dorothy's door. As soon as she stepped out, he rushed over to the limousine to open mine and reached in to take my elbow to help me out. I felt silly having someone do the simplest things for me, but I was afraid to make a social error. Take her bags to the pink room, please, Spike, Dorothy commanded. We have many guest rooms, but I think you'll enjoy this one the most. It suits young people, she said. Spike glanced at me with a small smile on his lips and opened the trunk. Let me acquaint you with our house before you settle in for what I'm sure is a much-needed rest, Dorothy told me. I followed her to the front door, which seemed to open magically as we approached. A short, stout, bald-headed man with the bushy gray eyebrows and a pug nose greeted us. He wore a dark blue suit and tie and had a light complexion, with rust-tinted spots along the crests of his cheeks and the base of his forehead. Hello, Alec. This is Melanie. She'll be staying with us for a while. He nodded. Very good, madam, he said, in a sharp, clipped tone that was with just the slightest nod. His gray eyes swept over me, making me feel as if I had to pass inspection before entering the house. The entryway had a dark-looking brown tile that complemented the walls paneled with dark cypress. Above us, teardrop glass chandelier glowed. The stairway winding up the mahogany balustrade was detailed spindle work, was polished to a pristine glow. Spike started up with my bags, Alec right behind him, but I followed Dorothy deeper into the house. On the right was a very large living room with a dark pine grandfather clock that bombed on the hour of 3. All of the pieces of furniture were oversized to fill the great space. Light blue satin curtains draped the windows, and the marble floor was covered here and there with large Persian oval area rugs in a matching blue. There was so much to visually gobble. I could only shake my head. Great oil paintings depicting scenes of city like paradise in London, as well as grand gardens and all the elaborate gilt frames. Glass sculptures that looked like they cost hundreds of dollars. Porcelain figurines, dainty and perfect. They were hand painted with silver and gold. Antique swords. How could anyone be so rich? Cozy, isn't it? Dorothy asked proudly. Cozy? It was a room with one could run tours. Not relax, I mused, but only nodded. She showed me the den, with its rich plush leather sofa and chairs. Philip's office, the dining room with a table that could seat 20 at a time, and a kitchen that looked more like a kitchen for a restaurant. She was especially proud of her ovens, although she was quick to say she never even boiled water for tea. That's Selena's job, she declared, and introduced me to her cook, a very short and very plump Peruvian woman with eyes as dark as peat moss. Selena lives in the rear of the house, Dorothy explained. Spike has an apartment over the garage, but my maid, Christina, lives in West LA. She arrives here at 7 in the morning and leaves after dinner, usually about 8. Philip pays them all off the books, she added in a whisper. Off the books? Things accountants do to staff off the greedy government. Let's go settle you in. I'm sure that you want to shower and freshen up after our trip. Yes, I do. Then I'd like to visit the address. The address? Where my mother might be, I said. Right away, she grimaced. Surely you want to wait till tomorrow. I'd rather do it as soon as possible. That's why I'm here, I emphasized. She raised her eyebrows. I keep forgetting how much energy young people have, she said. Very well, if you insist. We'll have Spike ready for you in an hour. Thank you, Dorothy, and thanks for showing me your house. It's wonderful. She beamed. I've done most of the decorating myself, with the help of professionals, of course. Holly's been here only once. Can you believe that? I think she's afraid to return, afraid to face the fact that she might like it here, she added with a wink. I doubt that, I thought. Holly was impressed with spiritual, not material things, I wanted to tell her, but I kept my lips sealed tight. We climbed the stairs. Alec had already unpacked my things, hanging up what had to be hung and putting my other things in dresser drawers. It embarrassed me to realize that he had done this and handled my under things. I was so shocked by the bedroom, though, I didn't even have time to feel embarrassed. This wasn't a room, but a chamber fit for a princess. I couldn't believe the posh splendor. The walls were covered with silk damask, colored with a delicious strawberry pink, richer than any pale mauve of what I had thought had been at least 2-inch thick carpet. There was a king-size white pine bed. The wood somehow treated it as strands of blush pink through it. There was a canopy, and over the bed itself was soft and a furry coverlet. Even the walk-in closet was bigger than any room I'd slept in. It had shelves for shoes and a mirror, a small dresser table in the rear, but there was also a vanity table and matching dressers in the room itself. All the fixtures in the bedroom were brass. The floor was a whitewashed tile. There was a whirlpool tub and a glass stall shower that looked like it would fit a whole family, and double sinks. Mirrors everywhere caught my look of amazement. This was the guest room? What could Dorothy and Philip's master bedroom be like? I can't believe how wonderful your house is, Dorothy, I said again. I'm glad that you're comfortable, she replied. Comfortable? This is a palace. How could anyone not be comfortable? She laughed. Are you sure you want to go dragging yourself to West Hollywood so quickly? Why don't you pamper yourself a bit, dear? Take a whirlpool bath, rest, watch some television on your own set. We'll have some hors d'oeuvres before Philip gets home, and we'll have a nice dinner. It sounds wonderful, Dorothy, but I'd feel guilty. I'm not here to enjoy myself. I'm here to find my mother, I reminded her. She sighed and shrugged. Everyone in such a rush these days. Well, I'll tell Spike to be ready. Thank you for everything, I said. She flashed a smile and left me to take a shower and change my clothes. I was tired, nearly exhausted, but my excitement over being here and being so close to finding my mommy was stronger. I got into the shower. I let the warm water wash me until I tingled, and then I got out and put a pair of jeans and my best blouse, brushed my hair and took a few deep breaths, closed my eyes and thought about Billy Maxwell and Holly sitting beside me, advising me on how to calm my nerves and gather my energy I need now more than ever. Then I rose to set out to find my mother. Thinking about the time that had passed since Mommy had left me with my stepfather's relatives in Providencetown, I was suddenly plagued by a new, albeit foolish fear. Had time and events changed me so that she might not recognize me, especially if she's suffering from some sort of amnesia? It hadn't been all that long, but I felt so different. When I confronted her, how would I begin? It seemed ridiculous to walk up to somebody and say, "Hello, remember me? I'm your daughter. You're my mother." If there were other people standing around, they would surely think I was mad. As I stepped down the carpeted winding stairway and through the entryway to the front door, I felt myself shrink. It was an illusion, of course, stimulated by the size of everything around me, but more important by the size of the task I was about to begin. I took a deep breath and stepped outside. Spike was leaning against the limousine, reading a copy of Variety. He looked up at me and smiled. Then he folded his paper and opened the rear door, stepping back with one graceful motion. "Madam," he said. "Thank you," I said in a voice barely above a whisper. I started to get in and paused. "Oh, here's the address," I said, handing him a slip of paper. "Is it far away?" "Nothing's far away in a town except the good part," he commented. I got in and he closed the door and went around quickly to the driver's seat. "Would you like to look at this?" he said, offering me the copy of Variety. "No, thank you," I replied. He shrugged. "I just thought you'd like to see what a Hollywood paper looked like. It's filled with all sorts of news about actors and actresses." "You've never read one before, I bet," he muttered. "No, I haven't had a reason to," I exclaimed. He laughed as he started the engine. "I'm not trying to be an actress or anything," I added, when the smirk remained on his lips. "Every woman is an actress and therefore would love to be in movies," he quipped. "Not me, and every woman is not an actress," I snapped back at him. He laughed again. The patronizing smile that remained on his face was infuriating. I wanted to go to college and do other things, I continued, wondering why it was so important to me to explain myself. Your mother came out here to be an actress, didn't she? He asked as we proceeded down the long driveway. My shoulders stiffened. If you're trying to be an actor, why are you a chauffeur? I asked in reply. He turned and looked at me to see if I were being serious. It takes a lot of time, intense studying, knocking on doors, hundreds of auditions until you get that one big break, he whined. In the meantime, unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or unless you have some rich friends who are willing to stake you, you take any job you can get that pays for the groceries and rent. This isn't a bad job for me. Mrs. Livingston gives me a lot of leeway. Whenever I have an important audition, she gives me the time off, even if it means that she has to use a taxi service. How long have you been here trying to be successful? I asked him. 3 years. Seriously, added, he replied. Have you been in any movies? I had a few bit parts. I have my Screen Actors Guild card. That's more than a lot can say. I was in a play 6 months ago. It ran nearly a month, too. Then you must be good, I said. He turned to flash me one of his handsome smiles. I am. I just have to get everyone else, the important people, to see it, he said. After a while, it's just your lucky stars anyway, he said. Being in the right place at the right time. Do you believe in astrology? I asked. Hey, I'll believe in anything they want me to believe as long as it means I get the part, he said. Is that important to you? Are you kidding? He turned back and gazed at me as if I had just arrived from another planet. Then he smiled. After you're here for a while, you'll understand, he said. It's in the air. I hope I'm not here that long, I muttered and gazed out the window. Spike continued to watch me through the rearview mirror. I allowed my eyes to meet his briefly before I turned to stare almost blindly at the passing scenery. I couldn't help but be nervous. It was only minutes away. My stomach was doing somersaults. Spike finally noticed my anxiety and took some pity on me. It's been some time since you've seen your mother, huh? He asked softly. Yes, and you're not even sure it's your mother. No, I said, although everything points to her being my mother. He shook his head. What a gig. This address is an inexpensive condo development. Most of the owners sublet to people trying to break into the business. The business? That's what we call Hollywood, the biz, he said. We have our own lingo, he laughed. It's like another country, I muttered, but loud enough for him to hear, which made him laugh even harder. You really wouldn't want to be famous in show business? I bet you have some sort of talent. I continued to stare out the window. I play the fiddle, and some people say I'm very good. There, you see? A number of country music stars have become famous actors, he said. I'm far from a country music star, I said, shaking my head. How easy it was for someone to fall into the trap and start believing his or her own fantasies, I thought. Was that what happened to Mommy? You gotta think positive about yourself. Look at me. I must go to 10, 20 auditions a week, and most of the time I don't even get a call back. But do I let that discourage me? No. I just keep coming back at them. Sooner or later, he chanted. I gazed at him, wondering if he, not me, was the one who should be pitied. It's just down the street, he finally said after making a right turn. My heart seemed to stop and then pound like someone beating on a locked door. I held my breath as he slowed the limousine. That's it, he said. The Egyptian Gardens. I just love the names they give these places. I peered out the window. Tall hedges walled in a pink stucco complex that wound around the pool in an L shape. The buildings were only 5 stories high, each unit with its own small balcony. Some had flower boxes with plants overflowing the sides. All had small tables and chairs, although the pink shade was bright. The building looked worn, tired, chipped and battered in places. The lawn was spotty, and some bushes looked sickly, and many without branches or blossoms. There was a directory of residents just to the right of the main gate, above which the name of the complex scrolled in dark pewter. Spike was right. I saw nothing Egyptian or even vaguely Arabic about the place, and like him, wondered why it was called the Egyptian Gardens. The main gate opened, and two young men in shorts and polo shirts, wearing sneakers without socks, walked out laughing. They were both slim and good-looking, both with wavy dark hair. They were so identical, in fact, they looked like they could have been twins. "Pretty boys," Spike mumbled. He got out of the way and opened my door. For a moment I thought my legs wouldn't work. I pushed myself and stepped out. "I'll wait right here for you," Spike said. "Thank you," I said. At least I thought I had. I wasn't sure I actually made any sounds. He tilted his head. "Are you okay?" I nodded and I crossed to the main gate. I looked up at the directory and read the names until I found Gina Simon. My fingers trembled as I reached up to press the button next to the name. "No point in doing that," I heard a female say, and there was a young woman with bleached blonde hair that came up beside me. She was in a pink tank top and white spandex shorts, and her hair was tied in a ponytail. She jogged in place as we spoke, her pretty face flushed with small beads of sweat along her brow. "It doesn't work. They were supposed to fix it last week, and the week before that, and the week before that, but nothing gets done fast around here." She took deep breaths and continued to lift her feet in rhythm. "Who are you looking for?" "Gina Simon." "Oh, Gina? Sure. She's right across from me, 4C. Come on," she said, and jogged through the main gate. She paused, holding the gate open, and continued to lift and drop her feet as she did so. "It's not locked. So much for security here." I followed her, and she continued to jog down the walkway. I walked quickly, just about jogging myself to keep up. She paused when we reached the pool. 3 young women in bikini bathing suits were sunning themselves on lounges. I gazed about quickly to see if Mommy was at the pool as well. I was relieved she wasn't. I didn't want to meet her in front of all these people. A tall, very young man with short, light brown hair sat dangling his legs over the diving board. "Hey, Sandy, how was your workout?" he asked the young woman who had led me to the complex. "I nearly got hit by an idiot on a motorbike near Melrose," she said. One of the women on the lounges sat up and braced herself on her elbow. She had long, reddish-brown hair. Except for her nose, which was very pointed, she had nice features, too. "Did you lose 5 pounds?" she asked, rolling her eyes and smiling like a cat. "I'm getting there," Sandy said. She spun on her heels and looked at me. "Come on, before they eat you alive," she said, and 3 young women laughed. I hurried after her. She took me along the pool and down the walkway to the steps of the second building. Once inside, she stopped jogging. "I'm trying to lose weight for an audition. It's a photo shoot, and you know how the camera puts on pounds." "The elevator's right down here," she said, indicating the corridor to her left. "I'm Sandra Glucker, but my show business name is Sandy Glee." "My name's Melanie," I said. "Perfect," she said, shaking her head. "I love it. Actress, dancer, singer?" "No," I said. "No?" She stopped walking and turned back to me. "Are you a writer?" "No," I said, smiling. "I'm not in the business." Oh, she repeated as if she was realizing there were other kinds of people in California. She looked at me again. "You're pretty enough to be." "Thank you." "Gina Simon. How do you know Gina?" "Oh, don't mind me. You don't have to tell me. I'm just someone addicted to gossip. But it's not as bad as some of the other addictions around here." We stopped in the elevator and she pushed the button to the 4th floor. "We know each other from someplace else," I said, and hoped that would be enough for her. Someplace else? Is there a someplace else? She laughed in her own remark. I smiled as the elevator door opened. You're from Ohio? Ohio? That's where Gina's from. Some small town near Columbus, I think. So what, did you guys meet in school or something? School? No. How old did she think I was? Even more important, how old did she think Gina Simon was? What is it, top secret? There's 4C, she pointed to the door down the hallway. Instead of going to her own apartment, she watched curiously as I walked towards 4C. I gazed back at her and flashed a nervous smile, then took a deep breath and knocked on the door. The door buzzer works, she said. At least it should. Oh, thanks. I pushed it and waited. So did she. No one came to the door. I pushed the buzzer again. The seconds seemed like minutes. She's probably not there. Maybe she went to an audition. Didn't you call first? No, I said sadly. Too bad. In LA, you should always call first. I'll probably see her later if you want me to tell her you were here. No, I said, and realized I said it too quickly. I smiled. I was hoping to surprise her. Oh, I love surprises. So does Gina, I'm sure. She snapped her fingers. You're not her sister, are you? She told me she has a younger sister. You are, aren't you? She followed before I could speak. That's terrific. She'll be so happy. She misses her family so much. She does? Of course. Deep down inside, no matter how beautiful she looks and sophisticated she seems, Gina is a simple girl. That's why everyone loves her. You want to wait in my place? No. I'll just come back later. Thanks, I said. You sure? Because... No, thanks, I said, my heart thumping fast, and I hurried into the elevator and hit the button for the first floor. As the doors closed, Sandy Glee stepped out to look at me one more time, her face full of confusion. Then a minute later, the doors opened and I rushed out, and then I did a jog down the walkway and past the pool where everyone looked at me. I hurried out to the car. What happened? Spike asked as I stepped out to open my door. I shook my head. She wasn't there, and what? I don't think it's my mother, I cried.